Economist here. So, just wanted to kind of break down a little bit of Jerome Powell's speech here, talking about the employment and what that means to the Federal Reserve's monetary policy. Now, something I find very interesting is there's a spot in here in which that he talks about the neutral rate of unemployment. And now, to understand the neutral rate of unemployment, or the rate that it would cause inflation or deflation, is probably a better way of looking at it. And now, when the Federal Reserve would conduct monetary policy, typically the Federal Reserve would want to lower interest rates to try and create a stimulating effect within the economy that it would essentially get people moving, which would then be like buying houses, cars, going on vacation. But really, it was corporations hiring people. And if corporations were hiring people, they would go to work, more people working, more people going out and buying stuff, and that added consumption would then be the aggregate demand that the Fed would look for, and then we would find the inflationary pressures coming from it. So that would be typical Federal Reserve action from lowering interest rates, is that it would get people moving in the sense that they would be buying stuff and corporations would hire people, and that would be people going out there and spending that money. If they wanted to cause the inflation to come down, then again, they would tighten interest rates. People would back off on their employment, or they would end up laying people off, and then you would find that a lot of people would go on unemployment, and then the slowdown in purchasing would take place, and then you would find that the inflationary pressures would then ease. So again, the Federal Reserve would raise and lower interest to eventually move its way into inflation, but they found that through the unemployment or the rise in employment, tight labor market, however you want to look at it. What he said in the speech I thought was really interesting when it comes to the employment mandate, because the Federal Reserve is mandated to do two things: low inflation with stable prices, right? Somewhere around 2%. And this is completely arbitrary, and there is no real way of defining this. So it's low inflation with stable prices and full employment or maximum employment. Now, this is really tricky to understand again, because maximum employment or full employment, I think, are kind of defined in ways that people would say this is as much as possible. Like you couldn't get any more into the economy. But really, it's more like how much can you have before it starts creating the inflationary pressures, right? Maximum employment. So here you have this idea that they can run in unemployment low and then create an inflationary pressure, actually failed them, right? It failed them back after the great financial crisis. So when the unemployment hit an all-time low at the end of the Obama administration all the way through the Trump administration, we did not see the inflationary pressures as a result of it. And now the Federal Reserve has taken that into consideration as far as their part of their dual mandate, but then also as part of their monetary policy. Now, listen to this. This is pretty interesting stuff. See, most people are going to miss this stuff. They think that the Federal Reserve is going to jump soon as unemployment or whatever. They're going to look at these job numbers and they're going to think that the Federal Reserve is going to jump and move instantly because of certain aspects of the economy. But they're missing these things right here, these small little bits that Jerome Powell had mentioned, and that have actually been mentioned quite a few times through some of the other Fed speeches throughout the years. Like, this isn't new. This is just confirmation. Right? Into it here. This is what it has to say. The later years of the post Great Financial Crisis recovery featured employment running for an extended period above mainstream's estimates of its sustainable level. Now, the mainstream estimates would be like, hey, if you run unemployment this low, right, or run employment, right? They're talking about employment, run employment hot. If you run it this much, it's not going to be sustainable, meaning that it's going to cause an inflationary pressure, right? So this is what he is essentially saying here. So the later years of the post-Great Financial Crisis recovery featured employment running for an extended period above mainstream's estimates of its sustainable level, along with inflation running persistently below 2% target. Now, that was the problem. See, the Federal Reserve after the great financial crisis had printed up all this money and blew out the idea that there was going to be an hyperinflationary scenario. And I know I was one of them who was spreading the word, right? Like I screamed hyperinflation scenario, thought for sure it was definitely going to happen, dumped all my money into silver and believing it was going to happen, but it didn't take place, right? And this is where he's talking about it. It ran persistently below the 2% target. All right. Excuse me. In the absence of inflationary pressures, it might not be necessary to tighten policy based solely on uncertain real-time estimates of the neutral rate of unemployment. Very tricky wording. All right, very tricky wording. Let me read it again, just because this is how the Federal Reserve operates. They love talking confusing, right? They love being in confusing language, but we're going to break it down because we know what they're talking about. It says here, in the absence of inflationary pressure, it might not be necessary to tighten policy based solely on uncertain real-time estimates of the natural rate of unemployment. All right, so as people again are focused in on the jobs market and thinking this is what's going to make the Federal Reserve move, the Federal Reserve is not really looking at the jobs market in the same light. Right? It says right here, it might not be necessary to tighten policy when everybody else would be thinking it would be necessary to tighten policy. They can let unemployment run low. They can let labor market run tight. That doesn't cause an inflationary pressure. And they're telling us right now in this speech that they're taking that into consideration. I know a lot of people are thinking the opposite of that, but think about the words that he is using right now. Right? They always tell you way ahead of time what it is that they're up to. And right now they are saying it might not be necessary to tighten policy based solely on uncertain real-time estimates of the natural rate of unemployment. And I think this is a good indication of where it is that the Federal Reserve is viewing or looking at or for inflation. See, it used to be a time that it was solely, see, this is why your job sucks now. This is why your job doesn't make. This is why slave wages are pretty much guaranteed to anybody who goes out and gets a day job, is that they're not going to make it anymore. They're not even considering you anymore. Like they're almost admitting it. They're just saying, well, not even admitting, they're saying straight up, right? And they're like, as many people can work as much as they want. It doesn't really create the inflationary pressure like it used to. It used to be when everybody worked, we would have problems. We would have inflationary pressures built on account of it. But now the Federal Reserve is saying, not since the great financial crisis. No, things changed. Right? It's not the same economy anymore, and we certainly don't play the same monetary policy anymore. People don't realize it, which I think is very interesting, but the Fed is right here. And I know a lot of people will think, man, you're just interpreting it wrong. I am not. This is how the Fed's monetary policy has been going down for 25 years. I have not deviated once since I started creating or developing or here on this channel coming up with the credible threat theory that we essentially built together here on this channel. And it goes on to say this, we still have the view, right, that view, talking about the one, with the unemployment, but our use of the term, quote, shortfalls was not always interpreted as intended, raising communication challenges. Oh, no kidding, because everything is about your expectations or the expectations that are being delivered, right? It's all about communications. It's all about, expectations, and very little else matters. All right. So they had problems raising communication challenge. This was raising communication challenges. Okay. In particular, the use of quote shortfalls was intended as a commitment to permanently forswear preemptions or to ignore labor market tightness. Accordingly, we removed, quote, shortfalls from our statement. See, a lot of people are ignoring this, and I don't know why. This is like he wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't important. And people need to internalize what it is that he's saying. Right? Instead, the revised document now states more precisely that the committee recognizes that the employment may at times run above real-time estimates of its maximum employment without necessarily creating risk to price stability. This is important. This is important because most people are looking at the labor market incorrectly, according to the Federal Reserve. Think about how the Federal Reserve is looking at it when they're conducting their monetary policy. Because right now, the committee is recognizing that the employment may at times run above real-time estimates of its maximum employment without necessarily creating risk to price stability. And that's something that hardly anybody knows about. We're going to internalize it, and a lot of people are going to hear this and think, oh man, that's no big deal. That doesn't mean anything. And I'm thinking, no, when it comes to understanding how it is that the Federal Reserve is going to be communicating their monetary policy, understanding this is wildly important. Remember, it's all about expectations. And if we know what it is that they are understanding from the get-go and not going off of some weird interpretation that some mainstream media narrative has somehow developed, then we're going to understand how it is that we position ourselves way better than anybody else is. And I believe that we're still doing that today. It goes on to say, of course, preemptive action would likely be warranted if tightness in the labor market or other factors pose risks to price stability, but they don't see it. Right? They say, oh, but if it did, we should act. Now, doesn't that say something? Like, if it does, then we should act. How many people are thinking they're going to act? What is it going to take for them to act? How are they looking at the labor market? How are they looking at employment? This is information in which that most people are going to miss. I'm going to read this over again from the very beginning, so right to the where I just stopped. It says, later in the later years of the post-Great Financial Crisis recovery featured employment running for an extended period above the mainstream's estimates of its sustainable level, along with inflation running persistently below our 2% target. In the absence of inflationary pressure, it might not be necessary to tighten policy based solely on uncertain real-time estimates of the natural rate of unemployment. We still have that view, but our use of the term, quote, shortfalls was not always interpreted as intended, raising communication challenges. In particular, the use of, quote, shortfalls was not intended as a commitment to permanently forswear preemption or to ignore labor market tightness. Accordingly, we removed, quote, shortfalls from our statement. Instead, the revised document now states more precisely that the committee recognizes that the employment may at times run above real-time estimates of its maximum employment without necessarily creating risk to price stability, end quote. Of course, preemptive action would likely be warranted if tightness in the labor market or other factors poses risk to price stability. They're not going to act on that side of it. That is wildly important. Most people have no clue. Like, they have a hard enough time just understanding what the Federal Reserve is. They have no idea what the Fed funds rate is. They have no idea what it is that the Federal Reserve is attempting to do to try and create an inflationary or deflationary pressure. When you understand it to this level, tell me that you're not going to make better decisions for yourself. When you're sitting there reading the articles going, oh man, the Federal Reserve is going to have to move on the labor market, and then you're like, that's not the way the Fed's looking at it. All these people are going to be like talking all kinds of jargons and wild like stories and all kinds of stuff that sounds really smart, but at the end of the day, they're going to miss this, right? Because they don't even understand it. They'll read it and they still won't get it, right? They don't get what's going on here. They don't get that it's all about communications. It's all about leading the expectations. In fact, it's all about expectations because very little else matters. Right? All right, link is down in the description. All right. How are we doing here, everybody? We got 134 people watching with 32 likes. Thank you so much for hitting that like button. Everybody run out, hit the like button right away. By doing that, we'll get more people to join in on this live stream. Let's start breaking this stuff down and understanding it. And what do we got here? Mr. Victor, you're going to be paying more. Okay, lots of laughs. Okay, David, I saw this the other day. Plus, he's on the Pacific Coast. It's dark here. Yeah. All right. Which assets are you guys investing in? All of them. Yep, that's it. My understanding of the economy, that's my biggest asset. Everything will still get more expensive. Your government is printing more inflated money. But see, that's the okay. I think that's the very big misunderstanding. There's actually a deflationary pressure that is occurring, although it's not necessarily occurring inside of the prices. But there is a destruction of money and credit that is happening. It's just not happening to the point that people could really see it. Now, to understand, like, inflation is the expansion of money and credit. Prices is the results, right? So prices is a symptom. Like everything else is a symptom of the expansion of money and credit. The problem that we see most of the time is that all this money printing, we see this balance sheet expansion, and we immediately think, okay, so that's going to be an inflationary pressure, which is actually failing to understand that the great financial crisis literally failed to produce an inflationary scenario for the Federal Reserve. Now, it did create asset price inflation, which is very different from what it is that the Federal Reserve was looking for as a broad-based inflation that they can measure creating growth within the economy. They were failing miserably. And that's the whole point of what I have started this video for, is to show you that the Federal Reserve was looking at an inflationary pressure that was not building due to the fact that policy had come to a failure. Please understand that. They could not find an inflationary pressure after the great financial crisis because their monetary policy had come to a failure. It was failing them. It wasn't working. Quantitative easing, 1, 2, 3, and 4 took the Fed's balance sheet of $850 billion to over $4.5 trillion and failed to produce the inflation they were looking for. Again, I mean, he says it right here. The later years of the post-Great Financial Crisis recovery featured employment running for an extended period above the mainstream's estimates of its sustainable level, along with inflation running persistently below the 2% target. This is so critical to understand. To know that they were failing then is going to give you a much better understanding of why it is that they are doing the things today. Because if you take on the belief that money printer go burr, prices go up, and what else do you need to know, you are going to fail at understanding what it is that you need to do in order to be in the best position. I cannot explain this anymore to you guys. This is what's going down. Everything I read comes directly from the Fed. Like, I don't give you guys information that comes really from anywhere else. Like, if you want to understand monetary policy, you have to internalize it for yourself. There is nobody out there, literally nobody else out there, who is going to give it to you like this if you are not studying this stuff for yourself. Every single one of these things that I do, I leave a link down in the description so you can go and read for yourself. Internalizing this is going to give you such a much better idea. To know that they were failing after the great financial crisis, even though they had quadrupled the balance sheet, should then give you at least some sort of idea on why it is that they are doing some of the things today, because it wasn't the money printer that did the inflationary pressures. It was a supply chain breakdown, and they're keeping it broken with the idea of tariffs. And as long as they can keep the inflationary pressures building, they can at least have some sort of reasonable idea of what it is that they can do, which then gives the expectations within the people that they can control. That's it. That's it. All right, moving on. I study this stuff every day, and every day I realize Simon didn't really get it. Oh, really? Well, Grand Bucket, nobody actually really cares about what you have to say, man. If they didn't care, we got 136 people with 51 likes. We wouldn't see that like button keep going up. All right, Yui, you are doing a great service to those who are listening. Thank you very much. All right, vodka cranberry at Flamingo, 19 bucks. Did you made me look out my San Diego tiny house window? All right. Keep hitting that like button. Yes, please do. Thank you. All right. Let me cruise back up here a little ways. I sold my gold mining stocks a month too early. Why are you trying to put this on America when everyone is in the game that we can't get out of? MH53E, I don't know, man. I mean, I guess maybe it's because there was a time in my life that I was sitting there with like one foot about in the gutter, watching my family like drown with me, thinking to myself, man, this whole new world order thing is really taking everybody out, and someday I'm just gonna have to go to war with them all, and just realize to myself that, you know what, there are some people out there who are absolutely killing it, and I wonder why it is that I'm not one of those people. And I thought to myself, well, maybe it's because I just drink too much and I really have depressive thoughts. And if I really got my shit together, maybe I could actually do something inside of this world. And when I did start doing that and paying off my debts and putting myself to more useful aspects of this world, like trying to start a YouTube channel and helping people out to understand the economy, and kept moving forward with the idea of getting out of debt and paying off those debts, getting me into investments then have me growing into a position in which that I feel real secure with my family, being able to pay bills at will, and I want to share that with everybody else because I believe that they can do it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why I'm doing it. What are you guys doing here? You know? All right. No on gold stocks. They are just waking up more money than they know what to do with. Demand, demand, demand. Old-fashioned money making. No crazy ideas required. All right, sorry if you talked about this, but Simon, what are your thoughts on Trump firing Lisa Cook on the Fed Reserve Board a few hours ago? My ignorant self thought he couldn't do that, anything like that. I have to really look into it. I didn't actually know that happened because I've been busy. I haven't really been looking at the news. I got off of work and I've been busy ever since then, so I haven't had time to sit around and scroll. I just thought I would come out and do this live stream because I saw this stuff when I was I don't know. I think I was looking at it a little bit after lunch, and I just wanted to share this idea because I had been running through my head. I got to look into it. I'm assuming that if he did fire Lisa Cook and that did happen legitimately, then it was most likely because she did do some fraudulent things. And in that sense, yes, right? And that wouldn't be the first time that a Fed official had actually resigned or quit or was told to fire. Like, didn't, let me think, I'm not positive, and we could probably look this up actually. I think it was Evans, Fed official, Fed Governor Evans. Anyway, let me see if I could find it. And I think he did a bunch of like insider trading right before a bunch of stimulus happened. And like he made like this buku bucks and he was like, oh yeah, sorry, okay, I quit. And he just like kind of walked away and nothing ever happened, right? So this isn't the first time that stuff like this has happened, and it wouldn't be surprising that a Fed official does get fired, but it's not because he didn't like her, it's because she did something illegal, right? And the same thing would go for Jerome Powell or any of the rest of them. I mean, if you screw up and you try to do some insider trading to make some money off of, off some deals or whatever, when you knowingly you can't do that, then yeah, you're in trouble. You get fired for that, right? I mean, so this isn't, I don't believe that it would be under the idea that Trump doesn't like Cook, right? He might not like her. That's one thing, but it's not because he doesn't like her. It's because she did something illegal, and that's a difference. And so I would have to look into see if that's the manner of it, right? Um. I keep hearing the one big beautiful bill. What is in it? Is the government going to build railroads across the country? Hospitals and more. There's really nothing that they can do to do anything to help. I mean, ultimately, anything that happens is going to, I mean, they can't help. What's going to, like, I mean, if you were to ask me, what do I envision going into the future? I see like massive, mass transit, mass huddling of people, right? For the most part. People won't really own cars or houses or anything like that, right? That's not going to be the norm. That's only going to be for like the other class of people out there. And that's probably going to be something going into the future is going to be like that. I don't have any idea what it is that they are intending on doing to try and bring like manufacturing back so that we all have good manufacturing jobs so that your single income can be enough for the entire household so that you can have the wife and kids and the family and all that other stuff. Yeah, no, that ain't gonna happen again. And I don't really have any belief that there is anything that anybody could do to ever bring anything like that back. So what is most likely going to end up happening is that they are going to have to build some sort of system of operation in which that people are going to, again, like have something to do that brings them some sort of like idea that they are working. But I don't know if that's actually going to like be anything of real value. Like there's really nothing that we can do anymore except for sell stuff to each other. So if we can entertain each other, there's a lot that can be had in that. I mean, I think, just inside of this like the money like filtering down from the top into the bottom. So if you can entertain the hell out a bunch of money down. I don't know. Like, there's really nothing that we can do down here in order to try and bring some sort of idea that we can have some better American way. The only thing that an individual can do down here is to cut back as much on expenses as possible and then increase their income as much as possible and then put as much money as they can into some sort of return on their investment so that they can move themselves up to a position that they can secure a rate of return that is beyond that of their occupation. If they can do that, then they can might be able to step up and like, have the house and wife and kids and all that other stuff and believe in the American dream kind of thing. But it's going to take some serious discipline and understanding that there's no screwing around and that there's no like being wishful and hopeful that the next administration is going to do the right thing. So you have to wipe yourself of all that belief and then like focus in on what it is that you need to do to up level your skills to then again bring in that as much cash flow as possible. And a lot of times if you're young, it's actually a really good time to just screw it up. And I don't mean screw it up in the sense like just go get screwed up like on drugs or something. To screw it up means to go and try lots of things and fail at lots of different stuff. Right? Because if you do a lot of different things and you fail at it, there's no better lesson than failure because then you're going to look back and go like, okay, I ain't going to do that. If I ever do it again, it ain't going to go like that. And you will learn so much from it. So if you're young, like 18 to like in your late 20s, like screw up in a lot of ways. Like, not on purpose screw up, but screw up like I'm going to go and try and oh, boom, I failed. Man, okay, learned a lot, learned a lesson. If you do that early, you're going to do so much better in your 30s and 40s. Like you'll kick ass through your 30s and 40s because you'll kind of get like, you'll be tired of screwing up and you'll be like, okay, I'm going to focus in on getting this done. But if you have that sort of mindset, then yeah, no problem, man. You'll kick ass. Phew, man, you'll excel. There will be no problems whatsoever. You won't have any issues. You won't have any issues with anybody doing anything out there, and you won't be, you won't be held back by any kind of government or authorities or anything else. That's only to the people who believe that it happens. That's another thing, right? People are only held back by their own belief systems. They're not held back by the realities that are out there because if you look out there, there's people who are actually doing it, doing the thing that you say can't be done. And that's what's amazing. Like I sit back and people are like, "Oh man, you can't do it." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Those people right over there are doing it. You're telling me it can't be done?" And you're like, I was like, "No, you can't do it because you don't believe that you can do it. Those people over there believe that they can do it and they can do it. I'm gonna go hang out with them." You know? And that's the magic secret of it all. Uh, Legislation can be changed. We need to keep government accountable from changing it in their favor to our detriment. Yeah, I mean, all-nighter, I think that's probably the only time I'll actually agree with most of the paying attention to politics is exactly that. Like, I mean, paying attention to what it is that they are doing for themselves. I mean, I think that's probably it. But if you notice right now, not to push back against that because I am total agreement with it, but if you notice right now, everybody who is in those positions are not doing anything but to preserve their own positions. Like you think about it, it's self-preserve. Like everybody is only concerned in internal for themselves. There is literally nobody else out there who is doing anything with this entire belief that they are like, there might be a couple people who have some sort of belief like that, but for the most part, it's not. It's all about themselves, making sure that they maintain their position, make sure that they maintain their, you know, their existence and what it is that they got going on. Everything about it is always being like in that, maintaining that or getting that. And so if you think about it, most of the time, the ideas that would bring a, a better way to the middle class, to the lower end of society, would come from slowdown in the purchases of luxurious experiences by those who can afford it. Because the more they do that, the more that the pain is experienced at the lower end as the separation grows ever worse. And knowing that people want, like, I was just thinking about wanting a new car earlier today. Like, I want the new vehicle. I got two vehicles that drive, but the old Explorer has kind of issues with it. And, you know, sometimes the door doesn't want to shut right because it's a 99. And this is a 97 Explorer. And it would be nice to have a new rig, just to have a new rig. And I think to myself, that's it? Just to have a newer rig? And it was like the luxurious experience. You know, it was just like, that's going to continue. There's nothing I can do to stop it. There's nothing anybody's going to do to stop it because that's not the way it goes down. The way it goes down is ever increasing amounts of separation between the rich and the poor, more war and more debt. Right? Knowing how to position yourself for it so you don't end up like I was at 40 years old, wondering what it is that you're going to do to help, you know, feed your family or at least pay the bills, to then moving into a position in which that I feel like I'm actually doing well. And most people are sitting there wondering how it is that they can even make that happen. And I'm thinking to myself, well, a lot of it really comes down to the mindset that you have about what it is that's happening out there anyway. Right? And if you're blaming politics, that's probably a good place to start. You know? All right. All Nighter says, Kevin, value is the capital, not the currency. All right, deplorable. What do you call it when the government owns the means of production? Any thoughts on lumber futures over the next 2 years? No, man, I have no idea what's going to happen over the next 2 years. I mean, it's hard enough just to understand what's going to happen over the next 6 months, you know? Um, it doesn't. Okay, so is it a prediction of where you want to know where it's going to be, or is it a prediction of what is it that it's going to take in order for the things to occur that you want to see the price move on? Right? Like you want to make money on the move, you want to see like is okay. Let's talk lumber for just a minute. Right now, not a lot has changed in the lumber business. So if you have been following me for any length of time, you've heard me talk a lot about mill curtailments and slowdowns that have been taking place within the lumber industry. A lot of scare came from tariffs, and everybody was talking about how tariffs are going to cause all these lumber prices. And then a bunch of companies actually moved their lumber prices up only to have to get like right back in their face and then be told, you know what, there is no increase in the lumber prices, right? And so here we see lumber futures trading at what would we be like at what we 2018 is what we were at last time lumber futures were trading about what they are now. So to me, right now, the lumber futures market is really, really in a very precarious position. For example, okay, so much to talk about, and it's hard to keep it all like, you know, the important stuff. This is an example of what's going on within the lumber industry. I got a price list for all the random lengths of 2x4 through 2x12, 20 to 20 foot length, or 8 to 20 foot lengths. And something I found incredibly amazing is that I saw the 2x12, and normally I wouldn't just blurt this information out, but the 2x12, 8 foot, standard and better, kiln dried lumber was selling at like 550 a thousand. Okay. Now, if you watch lumber futures, green Doug fir is trading at 600. So here I can buy a 2x12 Doug fir, 8 foot long unit of it for under what it is that the futures are selling green 2x4 for. Now, on that exact same price list, the 2x12 20 was selling for $990 per thousand. Almost double that of what the 8-footers were selling for, and way, way over the lumber futures price. That is like an incredible, incredible spread between the 8-foot and the 20-foot price. Like normally somebody calls up and says, hey man, how much are your 2x12 sand and better? You can look up like the 2x12 10s, see how much they sell for, break it down to a single foot price, and just tell them, they're all selling for about this price. Not anymore, not that. I mean, you can sell 8-footers for half the price of the 20-footers. And that's not typical. That is not typical at all. I mean, it is, generally you're going to see that the price on them is a little bit higher on the longer lengths, but not more than double the price. That's ridiculous. That is like so far off the charts of anything that I have ever seen that it should be sending red flags and alarm bells to everybody in the entire industry, but I don't really hear anybody talking about it. Like they see it, they're like, wow. So anyway, what were you guys doing last week? Because there's nothing going on, right? There's like slowdown in business. There's nothing really happening. If we were like, pumping out lumber and this is the kind of stuff, we would all be screaming our heads off at it. But the demand is so low, nobody's really noticing stuff like this. Yeah. So, if we see any pop in home builder demand, what would cause that? Interest rates getting better in a significant way that brought a flood of buyers to the market. Well, that would get home builders excited. Right? How is that going to happen? All of a sudden, everybody starts working? Well, that doesn't really seem to do it for the Fed. Okay, well, probably not there. I don't know. What do you think it's going to take in the next 2 years? I mean, I don't know where it is that people think that there's going to be a rise in home building. The moment that you think it's going to be a house to build, like if you want to build a house, the moment that you decide to the time that you actually bring it to fruition, hell, that could be anywhere from 6 months to a year, maybe even longer. Yeah. I don't know where the demand is going to be for lumber. I don't know what would send the prices any higher. Well, if that's the case, we're going to see even more mill curtailments and even more inventory depletion and even more wild spreads between the different lengths on these different lumber prices. And who knows what that could lead to. So, the longer the pain goes on, the worse the conditions start to get. And then the moment that things switch and it starts becoming more of a heated market and people start running out there to buy the lumber and they're finding that there is not a lot of inventory out there because all the mills have been in curtailment because there's not a whole lot of people buying lumber, and then you're going to find that the prices are probably going to start moving up quickly, and by a lot. There's a lot of pre-foreclosures in my area out here in KC. Minimum wage, living wage, and hooker's wage. What do you think about Tesla and the taxis, and how it's going to change the job and deliveries? I'm personally all in. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really that concerned about technology to take over a bunch of jobs like everybody else seems to be. I mean, I'm not necessarily like super excited to have all these robotic kind of things, but I'm looking forward to it in a sense that it's going to be convenience, right? So as things come up, I think it's going to be cool as it happens. And as people start to find that they can now do things with their life that they should have been doing, as opposed to being a switchboard operator, like back in the day before they switched all the telephones over to, digital or whatever it is that they're doing now. It was, all these people who worked in warehouses literally, pulling wires and placing them, just literally just like moving wires around. And so when I think about like how it is that all these people lost their job and went to work doing things that they really should have been doing in their life, it was a bunch of women who were doing that work who then went to school, became doctors and lawyers and politicians, and started doing things that they should have been doing with their life to begin with instead of just, working these switchboards. So to me, I just look at things like that and think, nah, I mean, it suck at first, right? As you lose your job, but then it opens up the opportunity to do so many more amazing things. So, like, be thankful for it, really. I mean, if you give it meaning that it's a bad thing, then it'll result as a bad thing. It's like it's not hard to give meaning to anything because there's nothing that has any hidden meaning to it than the meaning that you have chosen to give it. Everything is a neutral. And you just have to realize that's the case, and then once you give it new meaning, then you can have a better understanding of what it is that you need to do about it. If you give it meaning that it's bad and it's horrible and it's going to destroy your life, that's exactly what it's going to do because that's the way you're going to look at it and give it. So all right. I work for BNSF as an engineer in Montana. Pretty crazy how quick they are programming the trains to run themselves, except starting and stopping. 2030 railroad want to cut to one-man crews. Yeah. Uh, do, do, do. I saw a headline that Trump's talking about opening up to Canadian wood again. Impact? Opening up to Canadian wood. And I'm sorry, there's been a denial of Canadian wood. I mean, we got a ton of Canadian wood. I don't know where all this is like the credible threat of tariffs has really scrambled everybody's minds. And I think understanding the lumber business as well as I do really gave me a much better understanding of what this whole thing was really doing. Because most of the time, it's really like I mean, think about most of the Canadian what did like Canada backed off on most of the tariffs, the counter tariffs that they had. All these things really get people to react, and that's the point of it. And so when I hear this stuff and I see like even the idea of like firing Fed officials and all kinds of stuff, like or switching out the Fed officials and all that, people are like, what is this going to do? Whatever. And you know what? I'm like, I tell you what, guys, I have an idea of what it is that the Federal Reserve is doing for the monetary policy strategies through the consensus statement. I'm going to go sit up on this hill real quick and I'm going to do an observation from a distance just to see how other people are reacting to this because it really seems that they're deploying a lot of information that are making people move right now. And I really want to understand how that is going down because that is really how they are controlling everybody. You think about it, the mainstream media is nothing but pure propagandized information. 100%. I don't care who writes the article. All right? I don't care where it comes from. It's all propagandized information. They are trying to swing a political view out of you. All right? And that's it. They're trying to pull your mind into one direction or another. And you can see it with just about every single statement that you find out there about how it is that the Federal Reserve has signaled rate cuts. And I'm thinking they did. I didn't see any signaling of rate cuts, but yet I find these headlines everywhere. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that certainly puts an impression on people. I wonder what that impression is. Oh, well, let's see mortgage rates fall. Huh. Interesting. They haven't done anything yet. Right? But man, have they delivered some information about doing something. Back before Greenspan, or really Greenspan was like probably the last Fed chairman who spoke in a way that nobody understood. The Federal Reserve would not tell you what there was that they were up to. They would deliver an interest rate cut with a shock and awe event. All of a sudden, you just wake up and the interest rates had moved, and people were like, whoa, what the hell is the Federal Reserve up to? It was Ben Bernanke who invented forward guidance. And understanding how forward guidance works through the propagandized media is ultimately the way that they deliver their monetary policy. You know? Oh, what glasses. We got 162 people watching. Go hit that like button. We got 93 likes. I'm loving it. Keep hitting that like button. We'll get a few more people to join in. We're 45 minutes into this live stream. It's about 8:30 on the West Coast here. It's getting darker by the minute. All right. What Simon doesn't get is, oh, this is Grand Pucky. You know, this guy is just nothing but a troll. He chooses to make arguments that are absolutely pointless and doesn't have anything to do with anything that anybody is talking about. So I'm just going to move on. Janet Yellen is my, actually, hold on one second. Let me go and see what he has to say. Wait, what Simon doesn't get is nobody controls anybody in the economy. Okay, nobody controls anybody. You control yourself. You know how many times I have said that you own your own economy? That, nobody controls the economy? You're absolutely wrong. You control your own economy. That's what you don't get. All right? No more reading of Graham Bucket stuff. You can put him in timeout. I don't care, all-nighter. Okay, if you think of the United States as assets, the natural resource and technology, etc., doesn't make the national debt seem as scary in a way. Well, I mean, I guess if you looked at the national debt as something that was going to be solved, or I don't know how to quite look at it, but to me, the national debt is something that's going to be ever growing. The problem that the Federal Reserve is going to be facing is that the United States is on an unsustainable debt path, and if we start running into a liquidity crisis, it will absolutely destroy the United States as they attempt to try and provide the world with the liquidity that they need to pay off all the debts that have been issued in dollars. But not being able to provide the liquidity to the world because buying into the United States government debt will send them on an unsustainable debt path, will then force them to have to buy the debt of a foreign nation, which is going to make it really, really interesting to see what the world would be like if the United States private central bank was buying the debt of a foreign nation and issuing out Federal Reserve notes that said US dollar on it. Would it say US dollars? I mean, if it was United States dollars that the debt was issued in, that the liquidity crisis was manifesting from, and the Federal Reserve was going to provide the liquidity to the world, and if they were going to be sending the United States on an unsustainable debt path by doing that, they would have to buy the debt of a foreign nation and print out US dollars, US Federal Reserve notes denominated with the dollars written on it in order to pay those debts off. And that's the only thing I can really see taking place. And it makes me wonder why they're in such a panic to try and develop tokenization and central bank digital currencies and stable coins and all that other stuff. All right. I don't know how many people see it that way. Hit the like button if you agree with that. Actually, I don't know. I don't know how many people are going to, I don't understand what the hell I just said. Did all that make sense to anybody? Hey, thank you for the $2. What is that? Night trim? I like it. Thank you so much for the $2 and the thumbs up, man. All right. How did the Germans issue multiple currencies to stop hyperinflation? Did they stop hyperinflation? All right. Hey, Simon, I was wondering, what is your thoughts on the government owning 10% of Intel? I don't know. I mean, it's not the first time that governments had been owning corporations or been taking part in corporations. As far as the merger between state and corporate powers, I think that's been taking place for quite some time. And it's just now becoming more evident as it's just getting Like, just might as well just like throw it right out there and just do it. The whole idea that the government wanted to buy into TikTok and stuff like that, I'm like, oh man, talk about the the best propaganda machine in the entire world. This is like one that's already been developed and ready and deployed already, and they just want to basically buy it and own it, And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about government. Like, that sounds about right. So if if you want to think about it in a conspiratorial mindset, it's already gone, right? I mean, the nation's already gone. The whole idea that you have a freedom-loving nation that's acting constitutionally is essentially is out the window. Now, if you believe in the Constitution and you believe in all that, and you think that that there's at least some sort of belief that there is a way of retaining that here in the United States, this constitutional aspect, then you better be living it. If you ain't living it, then it doesn't exist, period. Straight up. It's gone. And I could go to everybody I know, literally just about every single person I know, and I can ask them, hey man, what's the Bill of Rights? They might be able to get the first two: the freedom of speech and the right to bear arms. After that, most of the time, they may or may not get one or two more. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution should be absolutely ingrained into every single person. They should know exactly what they are, what they mean, how it is that they conduct themselves in accordance to it. If they do not do that, if they do not have that in them, there is no way in the world they can vote for somebody who is going to sit there and believe in that with them. There's no way. So for me to think that there's governments out there, or the government, or the Congress, or Senate, or anybody else out there, right down to my local officials, who can come to me and say, hey man, let me spit out the Bill of Rights to let you know that I know them. I would love to see it, because I've never seen anybody do it. Right? The freedom of speech, the right to bear arms, the right not to have to quarter troops less during a time of war. The fourth is probably the one that you should definitely cement into your tongue. The rights of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects from unreasonable searches and seizures. And no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons and things to be seized. Show me the warrant. And like old Nider has pointed out, show me the signed warrant, because they can show up with the warrant that's not signed, right? It has to be signed by a judge for it to be valid. The rights of the accused in a civil case, the rights of the accused in a criminal case, cruel and unusual punishment, right? Rights not specifically enumerated inside of the Constitution, state and local power supersede federal law. Nobody knows these things. Nobody knows how to political leaders in a way that says, do you believe in this with me? Are you going to do things with your power that is going to ensure that I can continue to operate without worry of whether or not these things are eroding away, so that I have to be ever vigilant every single moment of every single part of my existence, wondering whether or not you are going to slowly pull these things away from our existence, so that one day nobody knows that they're even there, has no idea what they mean, couldn't possibly vote for somebody who is protecting the idea of it, because there's nobody else out there who can protect it but you. And if you're voting and you don't know this stuff, then there's no way that you're voting for anything that's appropriate. There's no way. So, I mean, that's the meaning I've given it. And I mean, maybe you are voting for something that's appropriate. I don't know, because that would be the meaning that you're giving it. But if I'm to look at what it is that this country was founded on, why it is that we had a set of rules that was developed that said, hey, we got a constitutional republic if you can keep it. And it's gone. It's like gone. Right? So it's just like, I look around and people are like, you got to vote. It's your, constitutional right to vote or whatever. And I'm like, you have no idea what the Constitution is. You want me to vote for this? Every single president who continues to operate with the central banking system is acting unconstitutionally. Every single one of them. There is no point in pretending that they are doing something that is even remotely close to being, that of what the founding fathers of this nation had envisioned for us as individuals. This is not it. Right? I would like to think that I'm holding on to something that would be fairly close to being it. The forefathers had left us with an idea that says those people are so insignificant to our lives, they should be so worried that we will kill them that they will not screw it up. Where did that go? Now we're worried about them? What the hell happened? That's not the way this is supposed to be. But whatever. I'm not really somebody who is like that aggressive, and I'm more of a pacifist, and I understand how it is that I'm supposed to conduct myself. And if everybody else seems to think that there is some sort of way of like making this work for them by having this kind of administration who does this kind of crap, and the previous ones after that, it's not just this one, it's all of them really, then go for it, man. I mean, go make it happen. I don't believe in it. I've gone to the point that I'm now, total anarchist, in the sense that maybe if I hang out here in the idea of being an anarchist, maybe some way we can draw that total tyranny that we're headed to back towards something that would resemble freedom. I don't know. Right? Right? I mean, if you got total tyranny over here and you got total anarchy over here, and we're headed towards tyranny, and I want to be an anarchist, wouldn't that, like, if we're going to compromise, wouldn't that kind of put us somewhere in the middle? Right? I mean, it's all about compromise. Right? We got to compromise here. And compromise my freedoms away and all that other stuff. I don't think so. There is no compromising. I know. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to go off like that, but this is one of the reasons why I just hate politics. It's because this is my view of it. It was just like people don't have any clue. They're all sitting there trying to argue over this superficial shit all the time. Oh. All right. This new Fed strategy, what does it change? What does it change half their mandate? It does. It changes half their mandate. Who was that? Well, thank you for taking me back on subject here. Yeah, it changes half their mandate. So essentially, they're only going to be focused on the inflationary scenario, which is more of an inflation expectation that they're going to try and maintain at that 2% target. So, and they have ended the makeup strategy. So they're no longer trying to, excuse me. They're no longer trying to exceed 2%. They're trying to actually target 2%. Now, if they're able to get there, that's a whole other story. But their monetary policy is in an attempt to try and get inflation to a 2% target, not the makeup strategy where they would be moderately above for some time. That has come to an end. That they are not doing that any longer. Now, they may stay moderately above 2% for some time because just conditions this may result that way. But they are in an attempt to try and bring inflation back to the 2% target. Now, typically, unemployment would rise during this time. And during times of low unemployment, they would see inflation rise. They have found that this system is not necessarily going to be part of their focus when it comes to adjusting interest rates to either a tightening or easing of financial conditions, because they found that if they let the unemployment run low or labor market be tight, it didn't create the inflationary scenario that they were typically looking for. So that part of it is no longer their focus. They can say, okay, well, this can, as long as it's not a concern to unstable prices, right? Is if it doesn't create an unstable price situation, then it's not part of their concern anymore, right? And so until that actually happens, it's just going to be the inflation that they're going to be looking at, because half of their dual mandate is essentially become like benign. I don't know how quite to describe it. It's not doing anything, right? So they can just like, well, hey, we'll just kind of set that aside, and if it flares up or something and becomes a problem, then we'll deal with it then. But until then, we don't really even have to think about it. Voting without accountability is just an exercise to make people feel they have a voice, but with zero accountability. Yeah. Well, blind representation is totally fault of the citizenry. The people get what what's reflects of their values, principles. So there's that. Yeah. I agree. It's already outside of the common man's hands. The only thing we can do is kick over the apple cart and pick up what we can carry. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. The Constitution, you're right, on the money. Yeah, thank you. Well, I mean, I studied this stuff a lot. Okay. I mean, you have to understand, guys, I have dove down so many damn rabbit holes. Like, you think somebody who could figure out monetary policy to the level that I did, like, take that same focus and put it towards like some of the crazy crap that's out there, right? Like, I've dove deep into some stuff, and I do not like discussing it. And I do not like talking about it. I do like talking about the Constitution. I do like talking about monetary policy, because between those two things are probably the most important things that you can internalize, because it will actually be meaningful to your life. You can do something with this. Everything else will do nothing but deteriorate your world. Now, on that being said, I don't think it's necessarily bad to research it, to know what it is. The only problem is that it comes with a painful experience because of it. It's very depressing, and it's very depleting and negative, and it's hard. And it's hard to like use it in a sense that says, oh man, I can turn this around and make it a positive meaning thing for myself, because everything about it is very horrid. So to me, like, I think it's probably something that a lot of people have to go through, but the depths in which that some people have fallen into, they may never ever be able to recover from. And I can think to myself, man, there was a time that I got very deep and it was very bad, right? Like, I look back on it, I was thinking, man, yeah, that was a very depressive, dark time in my life. It was weird. And now I don't feel that way, and I don't look at it that way anymore. So, anyway. Let's see here. I don't care, just wondering. Ubered myself. Huh. All right. They have plenty. They have a pretty swell system. I'm currently getting off of their system, but I will miss it as far as mucking up the system goes. All right. You look into the abyss and you're still there. That's cool. And you're still here. That's cool. Well, the thing is like, it wasn't. It was the people I had in my life. I changed the people, and there was a couple of people who really made a significant difference. Just really like a significant difference in the way that I was not only like conducting myself, as far as like, I was not drinking and hanging out with people who weren't drinking and stuff like that. So that part, like conducting myself. Then I was also hanging out with people who had like this higher energy level to them that was really like motivating in itself. Like, I was like, I'm looking at people who didn't who didn't care about anything that was going on. Like, they didn't follow they didn't, and none of that stuff. They were just doing whatever the hell they wanted. And I thought, that's cool. Like, I want to do whatever the hell I want. Why can't I do whatever I want? And it was like, I had like, especially one particular buddy who watches a lot of my videos, and he pops up here from time to time, and you've heard me talk about him in the past and stuff. And I would really like to bring him on sometime. But he showed me that money is really just, it's not that big of a deal. And that money is not a limitation to anything that you could ever possibly want. And although I think he had, I mean, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he has some money now. He didn't always, and it never, like, I never saw it slow him down. He always was able to get whatever he wanted. If he wanted to smoke weed, he would have weed. If he wanted to, go fishing, he would go fishing. If he wanted to, eat some really, fancy grass-fed beef, he would figure out how to get that. He did whatever he wanted, right? And it never seemed to, like, he was never slowed down by a lack of money. Like, that wasn't that never occurred. Like, not in any time that I had ever hung out with him. And now for me, like, he would have, hey, you want to do this? I'm like, oh no, man, I ain't got the money. And he would look at me like, what? What do you mean? That doesn't make any sense, And I'm like, well, of course it makes sense. I got to work and pay bills, and I only have so much money, so I can't do that. And he was like, and then he would figure out how to do it for me and, like, go and get it for, like, and I'm like, oh shit, all right, well, I guess I'm going now. I mean, seriously, that's the way. But he didn't understand that. It was like, what do you mean you don't have the money? That doesn't, there's all kinds of money out there. Money's everywhere. It was just like, I don't understand why you can't go get money. And that was his attitude. And I learned from that. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're right, man. Money does fly everywhere. How is it that I figure out how to get mine? How do I do that? Did you guys, anybody catch my video where I fired the video production team? All right. ETH still looks like it's holding, and outflows from BTC going into ETH. Yeah. Awesome, friend. Yeah, Ryan really is. Yeah. An all-nighter too. All-nighter's named Ryan too. So, all right. I already have my bids in waiting for a bit more of a fail. All right. Aiming on artificial system. What is that? Aiming on artificial systems like Bitcoin's gold. Once it crashes, probably winter looking. I mean, I hope it does. Like, I don't have any problem. People are like, man, what happens when it crashes and all that? And I'm like, Bitcoin? Yeah, it's most likely going to crash. That shit is volatile as hell. Have you ever seen the charts of it? If it does, I'm going to buy more. All right? I'm going to buy more of it because it seems to always been proving itself for a 4-year run with the dollar cost averaging. That seems to just kill it and everything that compared to everything else I do, excuse me. So, like, to me, I don't think about it being the best place in the world to put my money. Where I think of it as is, it's Thursday and I have $50. I'm going to buy Bitcoin. That's it. That's the only thing I think about. I'm so far ahead on Bitcoin right now that I couldn't even tell you, like, what my average is. But it doesn't matter. I just keep putting more to it. They don't make any more. It's not like they do. It's going to be more of it's going into production, but at such a small amount. It's just trickling in. Like, all the Bitcoin is now out. If you are not trying to get as much as you can, as often as you can, then you're going to miss out because there's, like, it's all going away. Okay? And I don't know. Maybe I will be wrong. Maybe someday it'll be like, oh man, I lost it all. It's all gone. But I wouldn't have lost it all because I don't have it all in Bitcoin. Feels like they focus on is a get rich quick, too lazy, and don't want to work. Who's that? BTC is becoming a safe and liquid asset. 109K right now. Perfect. Well, let's hope it keeps going until Thursday, and then after Thursday, I don't really care. Deflation bust is an opportunity, right? Deflationary bust is an opportunity. Yeah, I would think so. But I mean, are we really going to have the deflationary bust like we used to? I mean, you think about it. If we are discovering that the monetary policy of the Federal Reserve is looking at the average everyday worker with less of a concern, then really are they concerned about a liquidity crisis happening with us? Probably not. They're more worried about the liquidity crisis happening somewhere else. They used to worry about us. We were the big deal. We were the ones who were the producers, savers. We were the ones who added, the added to the aggregate demand. That was the increase in consumption that they would be looking for the inflationary pressures. We were very, very important to the Federal Reserve and their monetary policy, but not anymore. Not since the Great Financial Crisis. Since the Great Financial Crisis, they were like, holy crap, did you see how fucking low the unemployment went that didn't create inflation? Wow. Do we even have to worry about the unemployment anymore? No? Okay. So it's just inflation? Gotcha. All right. That's what's like, think about it. That is new to the Federal Reserve. That is something that they never had occurring before. And if people haven't internalized that to go like, holy, what? Like this is a shocking thing. Most people don't even realize that it's even that critical or that important to me. I'm looking at it, I was like, man, if that ain't a sign of the times, like talk about a wealth divide, talk about the gap and inequality when the monetary policy can care less about the working individual. Wow. I mean, that's like Cantillon effect on rocket fuel, you know? But it's really, it's like, it's so hard to see because, 80% of us are in the same boat. We're all like hanging out with each other going, man, this administration sucks and that administration sucks. And man, if they rich were to do, it would be so much different. Dang old, like somebody was telling me that like Boomhauer would make a great president. I'd be like, dang, and he'd be great for the chairman of the Fed. Like have a Boomhauer up there giving speeches, dang old interest, them dang thing had to go down, darn old effective lower bounds, ELB, you know. All right. Many can help spend their assets in rebuilding in other countries. All right. Would you suggest the book How to Invest by Nancy Dunnan? Wouldn't know. I never read it. Bob Dole for Fed chair. Scooping up all these dividend stocks on the cheap now. See, yeah, that's the position that I ultimately really want to take is the buying into the dividend paying stocks. And like, I'm such a speculator though. Like, I invest in the long run. Like, don't get me wrong. I have like a small portfolio that I kind of stick stuff to and just like, okay, and I don't really pay attention to what it's doing. I just, keep putting money into it. I have a 401k that's kind of the same thing, where I am investing very passively, just not even paying attention to what's going on with it, just keep stacking into it. The 401k is my favorite one because it's matched by my employer, so it's just like that's like free money. Like people laugh at the 401k and I'm like, you do realize he's matching, right? I mean, that's like awesome. That's the best thing in the entire world. So any place that I can go that has like a return or some kind of like you think about it, it's like a doubling of my money, just by simply like just putting it in there, like he just matches it, and I'm like, hell yeah, like how do you beat that? You can't. So to me, like I just laugh every time I look at it. I'm like, yes, that's my favorite right there, doubling every time, bang, 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 bang. Um, but dividend paying stocks to me, like that would be the ultimate. If I had a huge portfolio of lots of different dividend paying stocks that were quality that I would like, you'd have to maintain them, just make sure that you have the right ones. To me, like that would be the ultimate money machine. Right? Something that's paying you every quarter, and there's some that pay out monthly too, right? But something that pays out every quarter or whatever it is, a significant portion of your living, right? If you could get that to happen from the ownership of dividend paying stocks and just maintaining those things, me like man that would be like an awesome way, and it wouldn't just necessarily just all be in dividend paying stocks, but that would be like a significant way of producing the money making machine, dividend paying stocks, bonds, different things. But anyway, Why can't quantum computing be used to further secure BTC? Why only break it? Yeah, I kind of thought the same thing, only, but I'm not smart enough to understand Bitcoin to begin with. So, like, I had to really trust the computer geeks that I knew out there and the ones that I was listening to in order to like at least take on the idea that Bitcoin is the most secure cryptocurrency out there due to the fact that 51% takeover of the miners would be incredibly difficult and take an insane amount of computing power and like it just wouldn't really be feasible. And then like the idea of quantum computing being able to break that, it seems very reasonable. But then I also heard other people like kind of counter that idea with some other talk that was really a bunch of jargon that was so far over my head that I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go with like it's secure. Like, I don't know. Maybe I mean I guess maybe I'm naive. I don't know. Quant can, I think this is what government will use. It's called mainstream reporting on the economy. I bought Netflix when it was $100. I was lucky. It's called, oh, we already did that one. All right. I want to be a swing trader because once you learn down and up, you will make money. I think that's the best position. The threat to Bitcoin is less miners, less mining of Bitcoin. I think it's the biggest threat. Dang. Of interest, man, I tell you what, bullwhip. Huh. The university and airlines book club will like the Netflix was the IRA. What do you think about the buy, borrow, die method to live for Bitcoin without ever selling? Um, yeah, like borrow against it, but because you pay taxes on borrowed money. So I don't know, like if it ever got up to like something that was really significant and I wanted to take it out, like I would probably borrow against it and buy something that would have some sort of return. Like buy business, buy rental properties, buy something else with it, and then pay back the Bitcoin with ever the cash flow, like buy more assets with it. Um, that's kind of what I see. But I don't know. I mean, time will tell. I mean, we got to figure that out once we get there. And like Bitcoin isn't my only spot. Like I buy other things as well. All right. I hope AI takes all of our jobs. Have you ever seen the Jetsons? Why would Bitcoin ever break you if you can borrow against it? I'm not sure. I sold all my XRP because of the SEC rule back in the day. Not the biggest fan of it, but it was a mistake to sell because of fear. Yeah. Alright. Bitcoin will go down and see levels no one here would believe. Good luck borrowing against BTC when it can go down to 80, 90%. Yeah, I mean, that would be quite a bit. That would be like a lot. That would have a lot of people screaming and crying and feeling really upset if it was to fall 80 or 90%. Now, that would be quite a, I mean, is that possible? Sure. But I don't know what would necessarily cause that to take place. I mean, Bitcoin's turning into a global currency like it always has been. So I hear these things, well, the government will just do this. And I'm like, they can do whatever they want in the United States. It doesn't mean that the people in India and China and Russia and all the other places out there aren't going to be wanting to mess with this stuff. All right. Like it's not a matter of government. Government doesn't have anything to do with the transactions. I mean, they can track them and see them and, try and, track people down and do all kinds of stuff with the transactions, but they can't stop them. That's what's beautiful about it. If anybody else in the entire world has a Bitcoin wallet, They don't even, like, all they have to do is have access to the internet. That's it. These transactions can happen. And what's even better about it is that if you can memorize that 64-digit key, that private key, you can carry all your money around in your head. Think about that. You can cross borders, go to jail, have everything taken from you, but you have everything locked up right up inside your head. There's very little else in the world that has that kind of capability. That is pretty damn cool. So to me, like, I'm in it. If it goes down 90%, I'm loading up, man. If there's going to be that much Bitcoin out there to sell at 90% discount, man, from what it is today, yeah, I'll be all over it. Man, I'm going to be all over it. And so will a lot of other people. UE is preaching. Love it. Yeah, thanks, guys. I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to say how it is. You think we get universal basic income soon? I hope not. Universal basic income will definitely separate the rich from the poor on an extreme level. And you know what's saddest about that is that that it's going to be sold to the poor, and it's going to absolutely rocket ship the rich. And it's going to be sold to the poor. Like, the poor are going to be like, "Woo, give us the UBI," and the rich people are going to be like, "Oh my God, this is going to be so easy. It's going to be so easy." And we're going to see inequality like none other. We're going to see it anyway. Like, there's no other thing. There's nothing else that can happen except for that direction, because it's built into the cake. It's like it's built into the system that if you have ever increasing amounts of new money, the Cantillon effect will separate the rich from the poor every single time. And people are like, well, you can make up all these rules and regulations and all this other stuff. I'm talking about underlying economic forces. You can't stop them. It's like trying to stop gravity from existing, right? And then people say, well, there's a plane. And I'll be like, okay, what happens when the plane runs out of fuel, right? The natural forces kick in and that thing comes to the ground, just like anything else would. So underlying economic forces are going to be at play regardless of whatever rules or regulations that they try to put out there. It will not matter. If you increase the amount of money that is coming into the system with more debt issuance, more cash flow, you will guarantee a separation between the rich and the poor. And I don't care if you give it to the poor first. If you give it to the poor first, you can say, like, oh, look, it's going to shrink inequality with all these people who have all this money. They will spend it in a way that will send that money directly to the rich. They will not pay off debt. They will not put it towards return on capital investments. They will not do anything of starting businesses for themselves. They will spend it on absolute garbage, luxurious items, and a waste of time. Because if they were to do anything else with the money, they would have already done it and they wouldn't be poor. And that's the unfortunate consequences of the system. And it's not the system that did it. It's the unfortunate consequences of a system of ever increasing amounts of new money that is going to cause the separation to be worse. I mean, you can just go and read it for yourself out of the Cantillon essay. I mean, he talks about how the separation occurs from new money. It's nothing new. It's a very old thing. I mean, you can't have separation without new money. Think about it. Separate the rich from the poor without money. You can't. They're all the same people, right? But as soon as you throw money in there, it's going to concentrate to a handful of people, and then there's going to be a separation. So until you add the money, there is no separation of the rich and the poor, because there's nothing to be rich and poor with. But then you throw the money in there, and now it has a direction to go to, and those are the people who become rich, and everybody else says, oh man, this is unfair. And it was like, why? Because you didn't deploy it to return on capital investments, but instead went and bought toots and whores? I mean, what is it? I mean, what do you expect? How long are we going to be out here for, guys? I got to go read up on Lisa Cook getting fired. Did that really happen? Or is it just like, mainstream media narrative stuff? All right, Universal Basic Seed Bank. All right. Imagine accepting UBI while living in Vietnam on $1,000 to $1,500 a month, living like a king. It's kind of like cheating. Can you do that? Can I collect UBI and just go live wherever I want in the world? That would actually be a way to deal with Triffin's dilemma, wouldn't it? Like, instead of buying the world's production, just send the people out of the country and give them UBI to spend someplace else. And that way, you don't have to worry about bringing in the production of another nation in order to get the dollars out there to the world. You can just send the dollars out there to the people who have left the country and living out there in those other nations and get them to spend it over there. Of course, the smart ones would probably doing like return on capital investment there too, and they would end up owning everything, being the property owners, and then like everybody would just hate America for it even more than they do now because, we're Americans, right? Uh, I meet so many Americans living in Thailand and Philippines, mostly old white guys. Yeah, I'm planning to do that. It's called Passport Bros. It's hack retire where you want. That's what the Passport Bros do, and retirement people living abroad. Wow, like okay, well, there's a whole system for it, I guess. The whole idea of it. That is what I do not believe if they are going to go to the digital currency, it will not be something already to use because it would be unfair for the rest of us not owning Bitcoin. It would be unfair for the rest of us to, okay, digital something, it will be something already in use because it would be unfair for the rest of us not owning Bitcoin. You know, unfair. Yeah. It's unfair. Like, if it's unfair, then that's probably the way it's going to end up going. So you've actually kind of convinced me of something that is probably going to end up going to Bitcoin just because it would simply be the most unfair way of actually going towards a currency. So, you've actually given me a different perspective on it because nothing is fair. And this country is probably the most unfair place in the entire world when it comes to understanding the difference between what it is that is a luxury, a pleasure, a freedom, and an entitlement. Right? This place is really unfair. But then again, you also have the most opportunities too. So that's kind of fair, right? Yeah, I mean, not that anybody will take advantage of them, but you have the opportunity, and that's pretty fair. All right, what time is it? I'm gonna go, guys. It's like what is it, 1 hour and 27 minutes into this live stream. And I kind of went off. I was just going to talk about the unemployment thing with the Fed, but I just really kind of went off there for a while. UE, do you believe the public school system was set up for a lower class to maintain the economy, teach them to work and nothing about business and investing? Um, I'm not exactly sure. My wife works for the school system. She works in the public school system, teacher's assistant. And it's pretty interesting hearing some of the stories. Like, I can't go into too much detail on it, but knowing that she is there gives me a whole lot better feelings now that she has the inside view of it than before. Because before it was like, I was like, whoa, what I learned after she was there, I'm like, holy crap, man, I'm glad you're there because now I have a much better understanding of what it is that's happening. And I, as much as I think public school is great for like the social interactions, just like, because some kids don't ever get to, hang out with other kids without going to school. So for that part of it, I think it's great. The interactions, like the games, the events, the team sports, all that other stuff, super, super awesome. The learning to read and write and all the other stuff and learning to do math, that stuff, pretty good. Um, but for the most part, how it is that you're supposed to conduct yourself as a human in to understand like what it is that you need to do to secure a safe and viable future, that I think is nowhere in the game plan, like anywhere. It somehow, it's like this, it's set up for you to be, I don't know, like, I mean, I guess you're right, to be like the worker, but even now I think it's just set up for you to be complacent, you know. Like, I think that's really what it is just like, if you rely on the government, then, if you rely on them, it's like, oh, they need to do something to help, and then they, like, spit out something that helps, like helps, and everybody says, oh, okay, that's great, and it pacifies them, and then they chill out for a while, and then they start to rise up again and get more pissed, and then they try to pacify them again. That's kind of what I see happening. I'm I don't think that I don't think that the public school system has any expectations of anybody being anywhere near successful in their life. I think that they literally just try to get them through it to the point that they hopefully will not be a failure. And that's sad, right? I mean, the difference between don't be a failure and be successful, what kind of energy really goes into that? Because you think about it, like what comes of like most people who go to public school? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I went to public school. I barely graduated. I don't remember much about it. I was there to hang out with people. I wasn't really there to go to school. So I don't know how much of a benefit it really is. All right. The biggest millionaires and billionaires never even graduated high school. All right. Memorizing your key didn't cross my mind until you said it. Yeah, be very careful with that. Like I messed up and like at least secure it. If you're gonna do that, like secure it in another way as well. So you're not just reliant on memorizing it. But if you do memorize that private key, think about that. That is the awesomest. Wait, like somebody was like, we're gonna have to confiscate everything you own, and it was just like, not that, and it was like, you got to give it up. And I was like, nope, not giving it up. All right, you can take whatever you want. You can take whatever you want. You can't get my Bitcoin. It's all right there. You can't get it. And that's pretty cool, right? Go to jail, cross borders, have everything stolen from you. Watch it happen. Watch them burn everything you own while you stand on the street, and you're like, you're not getting that. You're not getting the Bitcoin. Right? Out of all the stuff, you can steal my silver. You could, like kick me off my property. You can, like, cause the dollar to crash. You can do all kinds of stuff. But if I got that Bitcoin locked up in my head, you're never, ever, ever, ever going to be able to touch it. Now, no matter what you do. I mean, torture, hypnosis, or something, I guess. I don't know. Did I get a super chat that I missed? Let me back it up here. I see some money up there, I thought. God, how far back is this? Oh my gosh. We got $1.99 from Kyle. Well, thank you so much for that super sticker. And there's night term. Okay. No, I guess that's it. Yeah, all right. Wow, God, so many comments here. Okay. Hey, Simon, all right. Even if they can't get it from your head, they can mandate it somehow, right? Mandate it somehow? How? Just go and download a wallet. Like, you might have problems off-ramping it into cash. Like, that part you might have a problem with, right? But you won't have a problem, getting the Bitcoin back and being able to do transactions with it. But if the moment that you try to take it off the blockchain or whatever, or try to cash it out, essentially, because you're not going to take it off the blockchain, it's always there. But if you ever try to cash it out at that point, then that's probably when you're going to start getting in trouble, right? But don't do it anywhere where you're in jurisdiction of that. Go someplace where they didn't, go to, like, it was just like, in America, you're going to get in trouble if you, try to cash out your Bitcoin, and go to Russia. You think they're going to care? It was like, you can do whatever you want there. I mean, not whatever you want. That's probably not true either. But you see what I'm saying? Is just like, that's the point of it. Is just like, it's not up to them. It's up to you. You own it. It's your discretion, not theirs. They can say, hey, we don't want to deal with you and your coin here in our country. Well, that's their right. But they can't take it from you, and they can't say you can't use it, right? They can just say you can't use it in their land. So go someplace else. I mean, that wallet can be generated anywhere, and you can send that Bitcoin anywhere. And they can watch it go anywhere, but there's nothing that they can do unless you're in their jurisdiction. All right. And with all that being said, guys, I keep all mine on, most of it is on Coinbase. Like, I'm not scared of any of that stuff, right? I think they want to do a world standard for crypto that will not be good for Bitcoin. I think they want to do a world standard for crypto that will not be good for Bitcoin. I guess that would depend on what you mean by a standard. Knowing the government and how they think they will make us switch over to American cryptocurrency like XRP, but I wouldn't put my money on it, but I probably should. No, that's not the way it's going to go down. They're not going to make you switch. What they're going to do is they're going to do a stable coin application, because they're already doing it, and they already got the rules and regulations and talking points and concepts already developed to push it that way. The dollar needs to be, like, the dollar needs to be tokenized. Stable coins are essentially a tokenization of the dollar. So if the dollar ends up getting tokenized in the sense that the stable coin is being backed by the dollar, and every dollar gets pulled out of circulation and being deployed through a stable coin, that makes cash less available and stable coins more available. And now, as they regulate the stable coins, which is going to be Congress' job, the Federal Reserve gets to continue operating their monetary policy like they normally would, because any kind of monetary policy that has a dollar being used to back the other currency, that monetary policy will transfer right into the other currency. So now they can continue on with their monetary policy the way that they normally would, without having to change anything about their charter, because the Federal Reserve technically can't inject money directly into the system. Right? They can't do it that way, and they can't go and buy the treasuries directly. That would be monetizing the debt. They have to buy something that's already been purchased out there on the market, and this is the perfect way to actually create a situation in which that you can pull cash out of the system, have the stable coin be performing all the transactions that are out there, have monetary policy then being transferred right into the stable coin without having to change the way the Federal Reserve is conducting themselves, and then be in a cashless society. And not have to change the way the Federal Reserve is doing anything. If you introduce XRP, you have to completely change the way the Federal Reserve is conducting themselves. Right? In fact, you would have to eliminate the Federal Reserve. That's not going to happen. Like, that is the last thing in the world that is going to happen. They're not going to do it that way. But if they can figure out a way that they can continue to operate their system like they normally do and transfer their monetary policy right into another currency, that being the stable coin, because it's being backed by the dollar, well, that's the system that they're going to use, right? Because then they can continue to operate in the sense of what their charter is allowing them to do. I mean, people can say it's going to be XRP, or it's going to be, whatever. They can make up all kinds of stuff. It's going to be some BRICS nations or whatever. I mean, that's what they believe. I don't. I don't believe that for a second. All right. Okay, guys, it's definitely getting late. We're going to have to call it quits here. I have a problem thinking through the mechanization of Bitcoin, which is already running, and destroying the dollar, which is already running. No, it's not. I don't know where these people get off saying that it's destroying the dollar. I mean, just go and look at foreign holdings of U.S. treasuries. Right? Let me look it up right now. In fact, I think it's dipped a little bit over the last little few months. But hold on one second. Let me bring it up here. What is it? Okay. Foreign holdings of U.S. Treasury debt. Okay. Oh, let me type in Fred behind it. You type anything into your search and you type the word Fred, there's probably a Federal Reserve chart that shows what it is. Yeah, right now. Oh no, it's at the highest it's ever been in the history of time right now. Okay. So just go and bring up that chart. Here, I'll spin it around so you guys can see it. This is a 10-year chart of federal debt held by foreign and international investors, right? Now, you're going to see it backwards because my damn YouTube app shows it backwards, but you can see right now it's the highest it's ever been in the history of time. There is now more forward holders of U.S. Treasury debt. They bought United States Treasury debt is now held in a higher percentage or a higher number than any time in history by international foreign investors. Okay? People say that the dollar and the governments, and I'm like, no, they're not. This is completely fabricated information that has propagandized you into believing that it's like some kind of dollar destruction that's happening out there. But yet, right here, you can see that there is an insane amount of treasuries held by foreign investors. That's not dollar. That's not people hating the dollar. That's not people getting out of the dollar. That's people holding U.S. treasuries because that's the easiest, most liquid, safest asset in the entire world that still pays some sort of return. Think about it. That's them wanting even more dollars. You know? The dollar's not done. I don't know. These people who come up with this idea they want it to be that way for some reason. I think it's because they have a lot of gold and silver and they're hoping and wishing and dreaming and praying that's going to be worth something someday. All right. Treasury holdings around the world mean one integrated system, one coin to rule them all. All right. That would be wonderful having zero inflation. That's what tells me the government would never stand for it. There's never going to be zero inflation. That's not a concept. If there was zero inflation, if there was ever a time that there was been zero inflation that was like consistently, then you would find that business cycles were absolutely devastating to the people. The prices might stay the same, but whether or not you're able to eat or do a transaction, that would be very questionable. But prices are stable, right? It's just whether or not you can be able to buy it or sell it. That might be a whole other story. Foreign investors, namely China, Japan, and others. One ring to rule them all. All right. Well, that would be wonderful having zero inflation. That's what tells. Oh, we already read that one. That sounds like the new mandate for the Fed. 80% of us not knowing if we're going to eat. No, I think that part, like, I think they're always going to make sure that you can eat. Like that part, I think that people are always going to feel comfortable with. Because the moment that you don't feel comfortable with the idea that you're going to be able to eat, you will lose your mind and you will riot. Like that, when they have like come to, I'm pretty sure it's 50%. I think it's when you spend 50% of your income on food, you lose it and you'll riot. You like, that's the point that you just flip it, you know? And so when the majority of the people are spending 50% of their money on food, then they start tearing down the Capitol and doing all that other stuff. UBI will cover the basics. UBI will cause a major, major inequality gap. And what you will find is that the inflationary scenario that comes from it will be absolutely devastating. Most people will have to have the universal basic income just to maintain the life that they are existing today. And in fact, most likely it will probably deteriorate because it'll take ever increasing amounts of UBI uh, stimulation or increases in order to just maintain the combating effects of the inflationary pressures that'll come from it. All the whole time the rich will just be like skyrocketing away from us, and the opportunity for the average everyday dude to try and acquire some of the things that the rich elitists will be essentially just taking out of our ability to ever acquire in our lives will just be so vastly incredibly disparaging to most people that they would just like it would be just a very depressive situation. The very beginning will be awesome. Don't get me wrong. Like the first few moments of it, like even probably like and maybe even the original like people who experienced it for the remainder of their lifetime might just be like, "Woohoo, man, this is awesome," and everybody will be screaming. But it will lead into the underlying economic forces of separation between the rich and the poor. The Cantillon effect cannot be denied or ignored. Right? If you deny it or ignore it through this, you will suffer the consequences from it. But don't get me wrong, the very earliest days, those people, they're going to love it. They're going to absolutely love it. They're going to be in the grace. They're going to be like, oh man, this stuff is so awesome. Look how awesome it is. Everybody who denied this is like a complete loser. They should have never have denied this. It is totally awesome. And it's going to be that for quite a few years. Right? But eventually the underlying economic forces will start to set in, be noticeable, and you will find that the rich are like way, way away from everybody else. Like the massive, inequality will be just, unreally proportioned. And people will be like, how did that happen? And it'll be like, well, do you think it was the ever increasing amounts of new money that you just dumped into the system? I mean, maybe, just maybe. All right. We need more babies in strong family households. Well, that one might be nice, but you know what really is going to bring more babies to a society is a lower standard of living. And I know that's really weird to think about the nations that have the highest standard of living. They also have the slowest population growth. Huh. I wonder if it's, I wonder if these two are related. Well, a lot of people say, well, it's because of education and it's because of all this other stuff like, birth control or access to birth control. No, no, it's not. Cantillon describes it right here, right? Basically, he says it straight up. Let me see if I can find it in here. It's a really good spot inside of the, let me see. I think it's increase and decrease of money to the state. I think it's before that one. The inequality. No, people slow. Let me see if I can find it. It was a really good chapter. Circulation of money, market prices. I gotta figure out what chapter it was. Increase and decrease of number of people in the state. 85. Let me see if I can find it. I love Cantillon's essay. Cantillon's essay is probably one of the coolest things that you could ever possibly read to understand the underlying economic forces. All right, found it. Here we go. The increase of the population can be carried furthest in countries where people are content to live most poorly. What? I'm sorry. What did Cantillon say? He said the increase in population can be carried furthest in countries where people are content to live the most poorly. Well, that sounds very opposite of a high standard of living. Cantillon saying if you're content in living poorly, you're gonna have more population growth. That sounds very odd. You would think that people who have a higher standard of living, who live in houses, would be having more children because at least they can care for their children. But something very interesting happens to the human psyche when you have acquired some sort of wealth. You want to maintain that wealth. And kids are expensive. And kids could lower your standard of living. And if that's the case, most likely you're going to postpone having kids. So those with a higher standard of living suffer the most with the idea of having kids deteriorating their life, where if you're poor and living in poverty and you're poverty stricken and the lesser of your standard of living means death, then you can have as many kids as you want. It doesn't deteriorate your life any. If anything, it's going to benefit your life because maybe one of them might be successful. All right. It says the increase in population can be carried furthest in countries where people are content to live the most poorly and consume the least production of the soil. In countries where all the peasants and laborers are accustomed to eat meat, drink wine, beer, etc., not many inhabitants can be supported. So higher standard of living means that you're not going to have as many kids. That's the problem. That's the reason why we have a slowdown in population growth, and why it is that it's explained any other way is beyond me, because Cantillon explains it as an underlying economic force. What chapter is that? It's chapter 15, part 1, chapter 15. The increase and decrease of the number of people in the state chiefly depends on the taste and fashions and ways in the lives of the property owners. Right? That high standard of living destroys the ability to have population growth. If you want to live like a poor ass, then you can have as many kids as you want. Right? I mean, I'm talking about the nationwide. But even still, this is like, if you don't think you're going to lower your standard of living by having kids, you can have as many kids as you want. It's not going to mean anything. It's not going to deteriorate you any. You will okay, the whole idea. You'll own nothing and be happy. I get it now. We're going to have a great population. I don't know. People say you're going to own nothing and be happy. And I think to myself, I don't really own anything. Like, I mean, I own the mortgage on a house. I got like 27 more years of payments on it. So I don't really own that. I got this 97 Suburban. I got a 99 Explorer. That's about it. That's the extent of my stuff, man. I mean, everything else is so small and insignificant that nobody, like, it would not mean anything to anybody. Like, I don't really own anything. People are like, oh, man, they're going to come and take everything you own. And I'm like, oh, yeah, they're going to be real happy about that. Joke's on you. I mean, what are you going to take? There's nothing to take. So I just laugh at that. It was just like, no, I don't think so, man. That's not the problem, right? The problem is that most people and the working class individuals, the 80% of the people, are never going to have an opportunity to buy into a piece of property. That's how come they're going to own nothing. If they got their shit together, were able to figure it out, cut back on as much expenses, and tried as much income as they could get, try to get it, then yeah, maybe, right? But most people aren't going to do that. So when they say most people are going to own nothing and be happy, they're probably absolutely right. They probably won't own anything. I mean, I know, I don't own anything. How about just let's be happy? That'd be cool. I mean, wouldn't that just be nice? Own nothing and be happy, eat see bugs. I don't live in fear like that. That's not me, If you're starving, the stagflation, you have no business procreating. All right, I love beater cars, and where's my neighbors don't get it. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people that get it. Like, I say it over and over again. I mean, I have a good friend, and I, tell them all the time. It was just like, if you want to be rich, you drive a POS. They can't do it. They can't do it. They got to drive a new vehicle. And I'm thinking to myself, in the time that you have messed around with this new vehicle that is still not paid for, not owned outright, I have made enough money to actually buy that vehicle. Right. And over the course, I forget it, like a few years or whatever it was. And I'm thinking to myself, man, like, I could own that thing outright right now. Instead, my money is getting a return. Like, I'm not spending money on something that isn't, like, even mine. It was just something to drive. It's like, it doesn't even belong to me at this point. Like, to think that would be the case when I have the money that has a return happening to it is just like, there is no way in the world that that's the direction that I would go to. Like, I absolutely feel I made the most appropriate decision in history. Like, like when it comes to that. But convincing other people, it's very difficult. Like, they will never do it for themselves. All right. $5 from Nitrim. How much of crypto outflows is redeployment of profit into lower interest rate loans and assets? Trying to think like the upper 20. I have no idea. I have no idea, man. I really appreciate the $5 super chat, but man, I have no idea how much of the crypto outflows is redeployment of profit into lower interest loans on assets. I don't know. Like, how much do they take out in profit and then turn it around and buy like rental properties or something? I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. Wow, we got quite a few people. 190 people watching right now. That's awesome. All right. Check the chain. You made the right decision. I drive old cars. Yeah, I know. I do. And I like, to be honest, guys, it's to the point now that I'm thinking, how long am I going to wait to, like, how much money do I need to feel secure about going out and getting a newer vehicle? Something just nicer to drive around, just a newer vehicle. Like I said, I have the Suburban, I got the Explorer. I would like to have these two as my beaters, and I would love to give that truck to a buddy of mine who's really in need of some wheels. And so if I could do that, that would be awesome. And then Sarah drive the newer vehicle around. That seems to me like, now is the time. It's appropriate. It seems like it's like, reasonable. But I have a hard time doing it. I was thinking, yeah, nah, I got the three vehicles in the truck, man. I don't need it. When you drive a POS, you got to have a backup. And man, I got that. So let's just keep collecting the assets. Sounds good, man. Like, that's the direction I want to go. So it's like I have to talk myself into buying a car, but I don't have to talk myself into not buying a car and keep buying into investments. Huh. I think I'm in the right mindset, you know? Um, Unfortunately, I have two trucks to fix, but still have saved versus a lease. Yeah. You have, Jimmy, you have great girlfriend? All right. But the cars aren't assets unless they're classics. But I don't think that's true. Like, I think that truck right there, I mean, it might not be able to sell for, I don't know, maybe I could. I might be able to sell for $1,200 what I paid for it. And considering that I drove it around for 3 years, got use out of it and all the stuff, I mean, to me, that was an asset. Like, it didn't cost me anything except for the insurance and gas, which is typical. Like, that's reasonable to have to pay for. And then I got to use it, and I used it for all kinds of stuff. So it was definitely an asset. I think beater cars are an asset. Like, they hardly lose much value, especially if you're just to maintain them, and keep them in somewhat of the condition that you paid for it. Don't put too many more miles on it or destroy it. Then for the most part, you're probably going to get the same amount of money that you put into it, as far as what you paid for. So to me, it's just like, it's not a depreciating asset. Most cars are, but beaters are not. They don't really depreciate that much more than what they are. They're just crappy little cars that are about as cheap as they get. All right. Infamous NYC. Truck gets me to work. I'm a travel nurse and have a truck to sleep in, and cross country to the highest paying jobs is definitely an asset. Yeah. Suppose Tesla will be assets when you put them in the robo-taxi fleet and generate income. That's at least what Elon is saying. I bought a 2006 Ford F-250 about 8 years ago for $6,000. I can sell it today for $7,000, and I can't even calculate how many loads it has taken to the dump, right? See, it's all in the meaning and what it is that you do with it, like, you know, and like anything out there, it's all about the position that you have taken, how it is that you are dealing with the situation you got. It's just like it's all, it's all pretty basic when you think about it. But for the most part, you look out there and you don't really see a whole lot of people doing it. You know? You say like, well, earn more or require less. Well, that's pretty simple. Earn more, require less. And then what do you see out there? You see people taking out massive amounts of loans that they can't afford. They are complaining about the bills. They're complaining about, like, the government needing to do something about it. And then other people out there are saying, well, I sacrificed a lot. I really don't own anything new or fancy. I've paid off a lot of my debts, pretty much all of them. And I've invested into positions in which that gives me what I feel is a secure, at least short-term future. Uh, doesn't seem that bad out there. And people are like, oh, you just work for them. You're just one of those people, one of those elitist people. And I'm like, what? Me? I mean, hell, I was a few years ago, I was barely cutting it at all, and now I'm just one of them. Okay, that's pretty funny. All right, remember Wells means how many days forward it costs you to live the way you are now. I heard Tesla robo-taxis will be separate from cybercar fleets. You might have to clean your own car. All right, but I have no insurance or retirement plan to maximize gains, but I have a set aside money for all that, so it's just a matter of personal responsibility. Yeah, and see, this is like, and again, like a lot of times people might have the opinion, it's like, oh no, man, I ain't investing in no 401k. I'm nope, no way, not me. And I'm thinking, the employer's matching money. Like for me anyway, maybe that's not the case for other people, but I know that's kind of an incentive for a lot of people to be in there. And I'm thinking they're matching money. Like I put money in, I put $1 in, he puts $1 in. That's 100% gain. Like it's just like, and it's in an investment that's going to go up. It's like, yeah, no, like I'm definitely doing that. And if it takes me forever to get it back, I don't care, man. That's a doubling of my money. That's a great place to go. I'll throw some at that and I'll move on to other things. And I have my other investments that I do. So I don't really necessarily have like a retirement plan, but I have retirement plans. And whether one of them does better than the other, I mean, hopefully I will have positioned myself to deal with the situation accordingly with what it is that I have done. But I have not put everything into one basket, that's for sure. It's free money, right? Interest investing is incredibly personal to the individual. It really is. And see, that's where like I also think like the more of an the more you lean away from family, like for me, I have a lot to think about when it comes to like the wife and kids, and one day I'm not going to be here, and how is it that they're going to end up, taking care of themselves and stuff, or taking care of life in general if I'm not around. Like this is a burden of thought that is on me. Like I think, man, this is something that I have to pay attention to because it's cool while I'm here, but if I'm not here, then what? Right? What is that going to look like? And for most people, that's not a concern, right? You just have to worry about why you're here, and that's it. And if you're just worrying about when you're worrying about yourself while you're here, that's going to give you a whole different view of investing than trying to say, okay, how am I going to position my money for when I am not here? That is not the same game, right? That is not the same game. And that's another thing when people say, how are you supposed to invest in this day and age? It was just like, who are you? What are you doing? You have to own your own economy, because that is like, again, somebody investing for while they're here or another person who's investing for when they are not here. And that's, again, very different. I'm only 44, so not old either. No. Investing is pushing the is pushing the future. It's all a game. When you invest, you are like another kind of human being. Another understands your investment. Nobody understands your investment. It's amazing how people don't invest. Yeah, it's amazing how people don't, and then how other people do, and then how other people expect you to invest. And that's really where I think, like, I love my channel for not really talking about how to invest, just more that you should, or figure out how to do that, and then understanding like the underlying economic forces so you know how to conduct yourself. Once you kind of get this, it's almost becomes obvious on what it is that you need to do. And for a lot of people who have never invested into anything, like it, that to me, like if you have no investments whatsoever and you have like credit card debt, car loan debt, student loan debt, mortgage debt, whatever, you're in an awesome situation. You don't even have to think about it, man. You got debt. Just pay off your debts. Debts are the greatest investment in the entire world, man. So if you are paying off your debts and you have debts to pay off, then don't even stress about being an investor. You are an investor. You're paying off your debts, right? Because if you can get a return on an investment that is beyond that of what it is that you're paying interest on as far as your investments go, then maybe okay, then try to invest. But really, you're just investing so that you could pay off your debts anyway and get a little tiny bit of return beyond that. So, for the most part, just pay off your debts, right? You go right to the debts, pay them off. The moment that you're done paying off the debts, you're an instantaneous cash flow. You have cut back on your expenses. You have been deploying that money into debt. Paying off the debt has now put you in a position in which that you have instantaneous cash flow. Every single month it's now flowing in, and you can put that towards all kinds of places. And if you've never bought anything in your entire life, buy a little bit of silver, buy a little bit of gold. To me, being outside of that third party claim is probably one of the best positions that you can take. It's a great insurance policy against it all. Governments can fail, banking systems can fail, massive, natural disasters can come. Whatever takes place, it doesn't matter. All your value is in your hand, and there's very few items in the world that provide you with that sort of security outside of precious metals. So again, pay off your debts. Once the debts are paid off, buy some gold and silver. And once you get a few of those things clinking around in your hands, most likely by that point, you're going to already be thinking of where it is that you're going to be buying the next, where you're going to be putting into the next investment, whether or not you're moving into rental properties or you're going to get into dividend paying stocks or something out there. But you're going to be motivated in heading in that direction. And if you do it like that, where you pay off those debts as fast and as heavy and quickly as possible, and you move into that instantaneous cash flow, you're going to be on a rocket ship to a safe and secure future. But most people, as soon as they pay off the debt, they'll go get a new car. In fact, they'll go get the car just before they pay off the debts to make sure that they never really got out of debt. All right. I'm gonna go, guys. It's 2 hours into this, and it's late. I'm tired, and I got to work in the morning. And you are also very awesome for sticking it out as late as you did. 147 people watching with 159 likes. I love it when I got more likes than I have people watching. It always makes me feel really good. Thank you again for all the super chats. You guys are also very supportive of the channel. I can never thank you enough for all the super chats and PayPal donations and everything else you have ever done for the channel. It's just absolutely amazing. And thank you everybody who has purchased the essay off of Amazon. The Amazon affiliate link gives you the ability to buy this essay, and it gives me a little tiny commission, but you do not have to buy this essay off of Amazon. Excuse me, you can get it for free at the Mises Institute just by clicking on the Cantillon, clicking on the Amazon affiliate link. You can follow the essay or find out how to spell the essay, type that into the Google search and get it from the Mises Institute. Download the PDF, read the essay for yourself. Absolutely incredible information within it, especially Part 2, Chapter 6, 7, and 8. If there was any 3 chapters in the entire book to read, it would be those 3, the increase and decrease of money to the state. I can never encourage the people enough to read that. Thank you very much, All Night, for posting the link down there for us. So again, thank you everybody who has supported the Uneducated Economist and done, all the comments and emails and all the wonderful things that you do for the UE. I just can never thank you guys enough for it. So I appreciate it. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.